so it's been a couple of years, but those memories haven't faded. We met at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of Dallas, where we both worked the night shift. I guess that's part of what made it feel intense from the start, being tired, young, and lonely in a place where everything felt kind of off to begin with. From the beginning, there were signs I should have seen. Eliza had this habit of hanging around after her shift ended, sitting in the back booth just watching me work. Not talking, not reading, just watching. I laughed it off at the time, even found it flattering. But there was something about her stare, unblinking and fixed, that should have warned me. A few months into our relationship, the cracks began to show. I started feeling trapped. She wanted to know everything, where I was, who I was with, what I was doing. If I didn't text back fast enough, my phone would blow up with missed calls. 20, sometimes more. I once took a shower and came back to 32 messages, all within 10 minutes. The worst part? Most of the time, they weren't even angry. Just desperate. I stopped hanging out with friends. I gave up online gaming because even that caused fights. "You'd rather play with strangers than talk to me," she'd say. I didn't feel like myself anymore. So, I ended it. But Eliza didn't take that well. After the breakup, she kept showing up at work. Waiting for me in the parking lot. Following me to my car. Crying, begging, sometimes threatening. Once, she even said she'd file a lawsuit over a made-up issue just to get my attention. I didn't think she'd truly go through with it, but the threat was real enough to shake me. One night, she messaged me saying she just wanted closure. She showed up at my work again and asked if we could talk. I didn't want to make a scene, so I agreed and sat in her car. She repeated the same things I'd heard dozens of times. I told her I was done. That's when her phone rang. It was her dad. She turned to me and said, "If you don't sit here and talk to me, I'll have him sue you now." That was the last straw. I reached for the door, but it was locked. When I tried to unlock it, she grabbed my wrist and dug her nails into my arm, deep. I froze. Her face had changed. It wasn't just anger, it was hate. Cold and calculated. I pulled hard, yanking her toward me and onto the passenger seat, using that momentum to escape. I sprinted to my car, drove home like a madman, and locked everything behind me. I thought it was over. But I was wrong. That night, while I was trying to unwind with a game, I heard the soft sound of a car pulling up outside. I paused. Listened. Then came the sound that made my blood run cold. A faint tap on the window. At first, I thought the tapping was in my head. Maybe the game's sound effects. Or maybe I was just being paranoid. I had smoked a little, which usually makes me a bit jumpy. I paused the game and waited. Then it happened again, this time, louder. Tap. 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 That's when I heard her voice. Soft, muffled, but unmistakably Eliza. "Dylan. I know you're in there." My heart started pounding. I slid off the chair and crawled below the window line. I peeked up slowly. My blinds were thin, too cheap to really block anything. I could see her shape, standing there in the darkness, looking straight through the slats. She had her phone in her hand, like she was about to start recording or dialing someone. I stayed quiet, hoping she'd leave. But she didn't. Her voice got louder. "Don't ignore me. You can't do this to me. You're such a coward." Then came the banging. Her fists slammed into the window again and again, and I could feel the glass vibrate with each hit. I thought about calling the cops, but part of me was still in shock. Still frozen, trying to process how it had come to this. Eventually, I stood up, pulled the curtain halfway, and opened the window just a few inches. "What do you want, Eliza?" I asked. She softened her tone immediately. "I just want my sweater back." At 2 o'clock in the morning? I told her to leave or I'd call the cops. That's when she screamed again, accusing me of abandoning her, of being cruel. She started sobbing uncontrollably. And for a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt, until I noticed something that chilled me to the core. To her left, partially hidden behind the big oak tree in my front yard, I saw movement. Someone was standing there. Watching. A hooded figure, completely still, until they realized I had seen them. My eyes went wide, and Eliza saw me looking. She grabbed my arm through the open window and screamed, "Don't you look at them." In that moment, I yanked the window down as hard as I could, on her arm. She shrieked and let go, and I slammed it shut just as the figure behind the tree broke into a sprint, toward me. I don't even remember grabbing my phone, but somehow it was in my hand, and I was already dialing 911. I pressed the screen against the glass so they could see I wasn't bluffing. That was enough. The hooded person turned and ran toward Eliza's car. She followed, still crying and holding her arm. The engine started, and within seconds, they were gone. I sat there in silence, barely breathing. An officer showed up 20 minutes later. I gave my report, but without hard evidence or damage, there wasn't much they could do. No arrests. No charges. Eliza still lives just a few blocks away. I haven't seen her since that night. But every time I hear a car engine outside at night, or a tap on glass, my stomach drops. Because I know how quickly things can spiral. And I know what it feels like when someone who once loved you decides they'd rather ruin you than let go. Small apartment in Portland. It was a modest building, 3 stories high, with thin walls and a creaky staircase. I was on the 2nd floor, close enough to the ground to hear everything, but high enough to feel slightly removed from the chaos of the street below. Everything felt new and exciting. I was living alone for the first time, had a decent job at a bookstore, and spent most of my nights on the little balcony just outside my sliding glass door. It overlooked the parking lot and the neighboring complex across the way. At night, the soft hum of the city made it hard to feel alone. That's probably why I noticed him so quickly. The first time I saw him, he was standing on the sidewalk across the lot, just beyond the street lamp's reach. His face was in shadow, but I could tell he was staring. At first, I figured he was smoking or waiting for a friend. But after 20 minutes passed, and he hadn't moved, it started to feel wrong. I went back inside, pulled the blinds shut, and told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe he was just lost. Maybe I wasn't even the one he was looking at. But the next night, he was there again, same spot, same time. Only this time, when I stepped out onto the balcony and looked directly at him, he raised his hand and waved. It wasn't a friendly wave. It was slow, deliberate, like he was trying to let me know he saw everything. I didn't wave back. I backed into my apartment, shut the door, and locked it. I thought about calling someone, but what would I even say? A man waved at me from the sidewalk. I decided to wait it out. But it didn't stop. Every night for a week, he stood there. Sometimes he moved closer. Sometimes farther back. But always in sight. Always watching. I stopped using the balcony. I stopped sleeping with the blinds open. And then one night, I forgot to lock the sliding door. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of it being gently opened. At first, I thought it was a dream. But then I heard the curtains rustle. I shot up in bed and turned on my lamp, and the light flickered, then went out. Pure panic. I grabbed my phone, but it slipped from my hands. I could hear breathing now, slow and deep, just a few feet away. I held my breath and reached under the bed where I kept a metal flashlight. I gripped it tight, then leapt up and swung in the direction of the noise. There was no one there. But the sliding door was wide open. The curtain was swaying. And on the floor of the balcony was a single black glove. The black glove sat there like a warning. I stared at it for nearly a full minute before I picked it up with the edge of a towel and threw it into a Ziploc bag. My hands were shaking as I locked the sliding door, twice, and drew every curtain tight. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I sat in the corner of my room, flashlight in one hand, phone in the other, waiting for something, anything, to happen. Nothing did. But the damage was done. The next morning, I went to the leasing office. I explained what had happened, showed them the glove, begged them to check the security footage. The manager looked concerned but told me their outside cameras only covered the front entrance, not the parking lot or balconies. Still, they agreed to have someone check my locks and reinforce the sliding door. They even offered to move me to a unit on the 3rd floor. I accepted immediately. For a while, things were quiet. I didn't see the man again. I stopped looking over my shoulder every time I came home. I started sleeping through the night again. Until the note showed up. It was slid under my door, no envelope, no name. Just a torn piece of lined paper with 4 words scribbled in thick black ink. "Why did you leave?" My heart dropped. I ran to the window and scanned the parking lot. Nothing. But now I knew, he had found my new unit. I called the police this time. They took it seriously, dusted the glove and note for prints, filed a report. But with no clear suspect, they said all I could really do was stay alert and call again if anything happened. So I bought cameras, lots of them. One for my balcony, one for my door, even one inside facing the hallway. I shared the footage with the building security and my friend Becca, who lived nearby. I refused to be caught off guard again. 2 weeks passed. No notes. No strange men. No late-night noises. Then one night, around 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of someone laughing outside. It wasn't loud. In fact, it was almost too quiet, like they were trying not to be heard. I checked the balcony camera on my phone, heart thudding. Nothing. Then I opened the front door camera feed. He was standing right there. Not at my door, but at Becca's. The man. Same dark coat. Same hood. He was facing her peephole, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then, slowly, he turned toward my door, toward the camera, and smiled. I froze. The next morning, Becca moved out. She never returned to that building. And I followed soon after. To this day, I don't know who he was. I never saw his full face. The police never caught him. But I know one thing for sure. He wasn't after me anymore. He just liked watching people who thought they were safe. When I first moved into that apartment building in Denver, it felt like the best decision I'd ever made. I'd landed a job at a tech startup, the rent was reasonable, and the complex was filled with young professionals like me. Everyone kept to themselves, but it was peaceful, clean, and felt secure. Or so I thought. The first time I noticed something was off was during my 3rd week there. I had just gotten back from work and stepped into the hallway outside my unit when I saw a man standing at the far end, just outside the stairwell. He wasn't doing anything. Just standing there. Staring down the corridor. Not at me, not directly. But still, it felt like he was watching. He didn't live on my floor. I knew that much. I'd seen most of the neighbors at some point or another. This guy didn't fit. Older, maybe late 40s. Wearing a gray hoodie and jeans. His head was slightly tilted like he was trying to hear something. I nodded politely as I walked by. He didn't move. I hurried inside, locked the door, and tried to shake it off. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe I was overthinking. But that night, when I checked the peephole before bed, he was still there. Same spot. Same posture. The next morning, he was gone. Over the next few days, I saw him again and again. Always around dusk. Always at the same end of the hallway. He never said a word. Never knocked on a door. Just watched. I reported him to the front desk. They said they'd look into it, maybe review the security footage. But the man kept coming back. And then it got worse. One night, I heard scratching, like fingernails dragging across my door. It started around 2 a.m. Soft at first. Then harder. Almost like he was tracing the edges of the doorframe. I jumped out of bed, grabbed a bat from under the couch, and shouted, "I'm calling the police." The noise stopped. I peeked through the peephole. No one. But the next morning, I found something outside my door. A single strip of black duct tape stuck across the bow. And went straight to the property manager again. They promised to take it seriously this time, but there was still no name. No unit number. Nothing on record. That's when I decided to buy a small camera and hide it in the smoke detector outside my door. The footage from the first night nearly made me throw up. Around 1:57 a.m., the man walked down the hallway. He stopped at my door. Then he knelt down and whispered something to the floor. I couldn't make it out. He ran a hand along the door frame, stood up, and slowly traced the number 9 with his finger, my apartment number. Then he smiled at the camera. Like he knew it was there. I didn't sleep that night after watching the footage. I stayed awake with all the lights on, waiting for the man to return. He didn't. But the image of his smile, so calm, so certain, was burned into my memory. The next day, I took the video to the property manager. They were shocked. Promised to show it to the police. That gave me a little hope. Until that evening. I came home to find a sticky note on my door. It was handwritten. No name. Just 3 words. I see you. My legs felt like jelly. I unlocked the door, rushed inside, and checked the camera feed again. He hadn't appeared that day, but it didn't matter. He knew I had cameras. He knew I had told someone. And worst of all, he knew where I lived. I started sleeping with a knife next to my bed. My routine changed. I parked in different spots. I started coming home at odd hours. I even stayed at a friend's place a couple nights, just to throw him off, if he was watching. But then I returned home late from work and found the hallway completely dark. The overhead lights were out. As I moved closer to my apartment, I saw something on the ground near my door. A photograph. It was a picture of me, taken from behind, at the grocery store. I was wearing headphones. I didn't even know someone was there. The timestamp on the back showed it was taken that same morning. I packed a bag and left that night. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I quit my job. Moved cities. Changed my phone number. I even stayed off social media completely. I became a ghost on purpose. It's been almost a year since then. I haven't seen him again. But sometimes, when I'm out for a walk or riding the bus, I'll catch a glimpse of someone in a gray hoodie watching me from a distance. Never approaching. Never speaking. Just waiting. And that's what terrifies me the most. Because maybe, he never wanted to hurt me. Maybe he just wanted me to know I was never alone.